Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on new content. So in this episode of Project Miata, I want to share with you guys 6 engine related issues I experienced from the start. And this is definitely not going to cover everything that can happen to a Miata, and not everything that happened to my Miata can be applied to every Miata out there, but if it at least helps some of you guys out there, that's good enough for me. So let's get into it. Number 1. The very first thing I encountered, what we probably all can relate to, are oil leaks. This because the front of my Miata engine and top of the gearbox were covered in oil when I bought it, and also some was visible around the valve cover. Now, after replacing the valve cover gasket and cam angle sensor O-ring, the visible oil leaks were fixed, but I strongly advise anyone that if you're gonna do maintenance to a Miata engine to this extent, you should also replace the front main seal and both cam seals. I failed to do that, and although the cam seals stay dry after maintenance, the area around the crank pulley kept getting a bit greasy. I believe this to be the reason a V-belt kept squeaking on cold startups, even though the tension was set correct and the belts were new. Because there really wasn't much oil leaking and the squeaking stopped after about 4 to 8 seconds after starting the car, I checked the tension one last time and left it alone for the time being. Number 2. Alright. The second issue or subject I want to address is ignition timing. Because after you replace the cast O-ring, you have to reset your ignition timing. Also, adjusting the ignition timing from standard 10 degrees to 14 degrees is a popular mod for stock Miatas, as it improves torque in the lower RPM range without any downsides to it. So I checked my ignition timing with the timing gun, and I found out that my timing mark was all over the place. It was wobbling left and right from the 10-degree mark. This unfortunately meant that my OEM crank pulley / harmonic balancer, which I had also sanded and painted together with the water pump pulley, was worn out and had to be replaced. Because I found a new OEM one to be really expensive, I chose this aftermarket one made by Cusco. I found it to be decent quality and perfect fitment. After replacing it, the ignition timing mark was nice and stable again, and I was able to get the timing set to 14 degrees. I have to admit, this mod made it actually more responsive in the lower RPM range. Number 3. In my efforts fixing up all the engine parts I took off during the maintenance period, I also sandblasted and painted these, as you can see in the first 10 weeks video part 1. Be very careful with the thermostat housing and the water pump neck. These have small diameter piping integrated in them, and I blasted straight through the one on the water pump neck. My solution was to tap in some threads and fit this coupler with permanent and heat resistant Loctite. I was a little bit more careful on the thermostat housing after this incident. Number 4. One of the last engine related issues I experienced is something that is well known in the Miata community, and that's lifter tick. After adding an oil flush additive to the oil, prior to the oil change, the lifter tick initially totally vanished, but it gradually started to come back. This was noticeable when it came back at cold starts and kept ticking longer and longer during warm-up. Number 5. When I first started driving the Miata, I noticed the sounds coming from under the car to be a bit harsh, and I could also smell some oil after the car had warmed up a bit. The cause of this appeared to be a worn shifter boot, and the fact that there was a hole in the shift gaiter probably didn't do the situation much good. So I replaced both the rubber boots. The smaller one closes off the gearbox itself, and the top one closes off the cabin on the inside. I also rebuilt the shifter, but I'm going to make a detailed video on that subject for you guys later. To top it off, I got some nice leather gaiters for both the shifter and the parking brake. Number 6. During the maintenance period, I also decided to clean out the throttle body and the idle air control valve. But after taking these off, I found the inside of the manifold to be quite dirty as well. Because I had not worked on cars for a decade and knew nothing about EGR systems or PCV valves, I assumed the amount of oily carbon buildup to be normal after 150,000 miles or so. I professionally degreased the manifold and flushed out the remains with 2 cans of brake cleaner. The runners were totally clean, and the plenum was almost clean. I used special EGR cleaner for the EGR valve and cleaned out the throttle body and idle air control valve with the last of it. I got most of the dirt off before my mom put her final touch to it. After I also replaced the seal. And because I had polished my valve cover before, I decided to do the same with the throttle body and the cam angle sensor. That really brought back the shine on them. As I was still monitoring the oil level, I discovered that the car was actually using a lot of oil. Also, on occasion, it gave a lot of smoke during initial warm-up. I made a video about the subject back then, and I'll add it right after this video. Also, that annoying lifter tick was starting to come back more and more, plus my clutch throw-up bearing was starting to give up, as you can see in my other videos. And so I ordered a new replacement clutch made by Exidy, because I didn't know how old the pressure plate and clutch plate were. So I dove online to try to find a possible cause for the smoke and oil consumption and the valve seals. Those were the cause of this on somebody else's Miata, so I read. In good spirits, I assumed this would fix my remaining issues with the engine. But I also wanted that annoying lifter tick fixed, so I decided it might be better to get the whole cylinder head rebuilt or at least freshened up decently. And so the car went back in the garage again. Well, they say third time's a charm, right? Well, that's it for this video on my 6 engine related issues on the Miata. I hope you liked the video. If you do, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye. Next week, I'm gonna pick up the story from here. I got lots more to show you guys.